Welcome to it. It's a Friday live Average Joe Sports Show. That is Gary Sharp, Bill Doleman, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt, as we are on the doorstep of the big game down in New Orleans. Husker Basketball back from the dead. Mike Ekeler, someone get the man a piranha. Fella, how we feeling today?
There's a lot of energy in there. Yes. Basketball is back. The Undertaker has come out of the coffin. Mike Ekeler is jumping on people. I mean, Nebraska athletics has had a nice little run here of 10 to 14 days.
Jordy Bahl's going yard.
Danny Busboom Kelly is back.
Yeah, that was one hell of a welcome. That was big time. And
Cortland school kids got half day off to go to the press conference.
And it wasn't even a snow day.
It wasn't even a snow day.
I mean, most of those kids were like, I don't even know who DBK is. What is that? But go Big Red.
Hi, Elijah.
Good to see you. It's been a while, Schmidt. I don't think we've been away for this long in ever.
I know.
But you guys can't be in the same room. I hate those restrictions.
Oh, come on. Wow.
No, that wasn't a restriction. That's Schmidt saying the same room with Elijah. Count me out.
No, that's a choice. And if we're scoring at home, yes, Mama has been shopping and there's Easter crap.
Oh, great. Now the Christmas tree.
Yeah, more decorations.
Tree will be taken down.
Yeah, but this thing has, I don't know. We're going to unveil it. Maybe I'll drop it.
Well, if it's colored red, you could just say it's Husker Baseball. That's what it is. Oh God!
It's an Easter macaroon tree.
Fragile.
It's a major award. Holy God! I'm going to go be a nurse. All right.
Imagine, if you will, you unfortunately need to go to the hospital.
It's me.
In the bed, and Chris Schmidt walks in the room. Oh, dear God.
Rub some dirt on it. Next.
I'll just be sitting there like, just smother me already. I don't want Chris as my freaking nurse.
That's. I don't need gloves. What gloves do you speak of? Let me ask you this. Twitter picture is out of old Dom Raiola and Matt Rule having a grand old time down at the Waste Management Open. Is that a stop you guys want to make? Do you guys want to get down there at some point before it's all over?
I have had opportunities to make it down there. That one is among the golfing trips to make. It is dropped further and further down on my list with as rowdy as it's gotten. And hey, I'm not opposed to a little bit of rowdiness, but
damn you people, this is golf.
Well, yeah, it was like we averaged like 25 arrests a day last year. Like,
wow, I didn't know they were climbing that high.
There's always people. It's like trespassing and people climbing fences and trying to steal booze and passing out in random places. Like the waste management
traps.
The waste management has gotten a little bit out there with some of the shenanigans, so it's dropped a little bit down on my list. But maybe I'll make it out. I have plenty of friends that go every single year.
Well, if Matt Rule imbibes the way that they, fans have in Phoenix the last couple of years, it was charming for a while, and I think it got out of hand. But if Matt Rule were to imbibe in the way they had the last 2 years and cause some type of problem, given the way things have gone during the course of the transfer portal and the offseason, I'm thinking Troy Dana might overlook it.
Well, hey, fellas, I mean, top 5 portal class. We may or may not, I'll just throw it out there, have a Rocco sighting Sunday. That's a Rocco sighting on the Average Joe Live. We're working on it. There's been communication. Go ahead.
I mean, is Elijah, who is the resident offensive lineman, is he okay with that? Having another offensive lineman on the show?
I did not ask. I did not check.
My offensive line experience pales in comparison to Rocco, so that would be enjoyable for all. And let's be honest, offensive linemen, they're unheralded, but they're the real superstars of any football team.
I love that.
Look at the Eagles.
Well played. 5-1, right? To the all in unison. But overall, it was kind of weird to not have signing day per se on Wednesday. A lot of us have grown up with that. but Nebraska is kind of doing the new normal with the portal and forging forward that way. Husker Baseball is gearing up as well. But what a start, fellas, with a little hoopage, and Nebraska basketball able to get screamed at and respond. I just try and envision what a angry Fred Hoiberg jumping on his team at halftime looks like. Did he bring out the garbage can, Sharpie?
You know what? Kudos to Fred. So we are in Fred Brary because in February, Fred is like on a heater. It's kind of interesting. They win in Eugene, and it's like playing a doubleheader. Like you want to split, but once you win the first game, you're like, man, could we sweep? And I think Washington thought the same thing the other night, where they're shooting lights out and they're up double figures, and they think, well, Nebraska got a win in Eugene. They're just going to cash it in. And kudos to Fred, because whatever he said at halftime, they responded. They jumped Washington. They got back into the game, and then they were able to pull away. And what they've been able to do in this little 3-game winning streak on the heels of losing 6 in a row, and you thought, man, their identity is out the window. Do they like each other? He's pushed the right buttons because, you got to be careful when you call it a Super Bowl. What happens if you lose the Super Bowl? The season might be over. And so he had a good handle on his team, and they've responded. Now it sets up as a huge game on Super Bowl Sunday against Ohio State. So, they've gotten back to playing the way they need to play. And also it's a make or miss sport. Look at Washington couldn't miss to begin the game. And they had some uncontested looks. They had some that were just great shots with defense in front of them. And then all of a sudden those stopped falling in the second half, and Nebraska made shots. So it's kind of nice. You've reached the second weekend of February, and Nebraska is on the good side of the cut line, where a couple of weeks ago we were like, well, season's over.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and dare I say, after making it through that couple week stretch in the month of January, you look at February, and Gary, right on. Like Fred Hoiberg always has his teams playing their best basketball in the month of February. It's something we failed to account for, but he always does. Every single time the calendar turns to February, it feels like something clicks with the team, and they're gelling and they're playing at their best. And if they are playing at their best, the schedule sets up pretty favorably for a good stretch down the final month of the season, getting you into Big Ten play and into NCAA tournament play, where you look at it and you go, I think Nebraska realistically could be favored in the majority of these games down the stretch if they continue to play how we think they can. And that's what they've shown over the past couple of games, which is their best basketball of the season.
The best team they have left is Michigan, and that's a home game. And if history bears out from the last couple of seasons, Nebraska plays well in the month of February, especially at home. 5 of the last 8 are at PBA, and the majority of teams that they're playing are right around where they are in the Big Ten standings or below, and that begins with Ohio State, whom they have twice. I mean, Ohio State's just right around 15 wins and 500 in Big Ten play, so you got a couple of games with them. But that Washington game, it was like watching the Iowa game in reverse minus the overtime. Because remember, in the Iowa game, Nebraska jumped out to a 15-point lead. They're cruising, and they're getting ready to make a coaching change at Iowa at halftime. The Hawkeyes come out and then can't miss a 3-point shot, and Nebraska folds and eventually loses in overtime. The Washington game, it's the Huskies at the bottom of the standings, come out 7 for 7, 8 for 8, or something like that in their first shots from behind the arc. Build that 10-point lead. Game is pretty much over, but Nebraska shows some fight and ends up winning the game, and winning it rather handily, holding them to 25 points in the second half. So, whatever button Fred pushed and how he pushed it, we may never fully know. The other thing that he's done is they've shortened the rotation for the most part. Yeah. They've gone to eight players, and that's what it is. And he's allowed Connor Essegian, who, again, disappeared during that 6-game losing streak. He's allowed him to shoot his way out of it. Now, can he continue to be consistent and go? He's probably not going to be a 4 for 5 behind the arc kind of guy every night out, but at least he's allowed him to shoot his way back into that 7-8 man rotation. But those guys who are not playing, the 15 to 25 minutes that were maybe a Ulis or somebody like Morgan or whatever, they've got to be ready in case they are called upon, and not let their lack of playing time now cause them to get into a funk in February. Nebraska's going to need him. But right now, he's settled on 7 or 8 guys. They're going to carry them perhaps into the NCAA tournament when 2 weeks ago we're talking about them not even getting a trip to Indy for the Big Ten tournament. It's pretty remarkable and pretty typical for the history of Nebraska basketball over the last century.
Well, one of the things I have noticed over this recent stretch is, and Bill, I think you nailed your points, but you look at it, first off, they're going through Bryce and Juwan so much more, it feels like now, where those guys need to score combined 40-plus points a game for Nebraska to be in it. That's kind of what it feels like right now. But you also see there's been a lot less complaining whenever guys are getting into the lane and putting up layups and they're getting hacked and it's not getting called. I feel like guys are going to the rim less trying to draw contact, trying to draw fouls, and more understanding it's the Big Ten. You're not going to get the calls, especially on the road. Go in there tough and get that thing to fall. And if you get the foul call, awesome. If you don't, you got to live with it. I feel like over the last couple of games, I've seen less of guys getting in there and throwing their head back, throwing their palms to the sky whenever they're not getting that foul call inside. I think there's a slight mentality shift that we've seen with the team.
I think also, so it goes to the sticking to their identity. But I also think it's players understanding their role. Bill mentioned the rotation's been cut down, but look like a guy like Berke. I think there are probably times where he wants to be the Bryce Williams scorer, where he's going to put up 20 plus. That's not why he's here. He's here to grab rebounds and score when he needs to. And you look at, he had 7 and 8 the other night, and he was one of the first guys on the floor for loose balls. So he's somebody who 3 weeks ago, I think was a problem. I think he wanted to be something that he couldn't be. And someone got to him and he has changed. And now he understands his role, that if he has a night where he scores 7 and grabs 8 rebounds, Nebraska's going to be in good shape. They don't need to be a 14 and 10 guy. And everybody understanding their roles and guys' roles being reduced has really led to, I think, a little bit more camaraderie over these 3 games. And I will tell you, if they go 2-0 on this next homestand, where they win against Ohio State and then they beat Maryland, who Ohio State rallied to beat last night, Nebraska's in the tournament, and you might not have to start saying, well, I wonder if they're on the bubble or not. I mean, their resume will be pretty strong for a team that would be 9-10 seed type-ish.
Right. They're sitting right now at 11 in most spots, last 4 in, but they can put some work in, and they've got some name teams with numbers next to their name, right? You look at Maryland, you look at Michigan specifically, you figure you need to split with Ohio State because you're kind of chasing them for a couple of the last 2 spots from the Big Ten that's in. And then it's doable, but it's also a bit treacherous with their road schedule because you usually don't play well or win at Northwestern, but the later in the year it is, the worse it looks, in my opinion. You also have Penn State that's there. And listen, teams go and die in Happy Valley a couple, 3 times a year, especially if you're chasing those dancing shoes to be in. But I want to say this about Bryce real quick, and I'll back out. He has accepted being the man. He's been the guy to score for you and get 19 to 25 a night, right? When the cameras are on. But when push comes to shove, the ball is less and less getting out of his hands. He's handling it. At times he's playing point. But the other night, he hit the 3 to give him the lead for the first time. 5 minutes later, he drilled a 3 to give him the lead back after it was a seesaw affair. And then right under the 3-minute mark, he drilled that 3 with the shot clock coming down to make it a double-digit spread with about 2:45 to go. 3 monster shots from Bryce. All along the way, him and Gary both have been hitting to the rim, and you got to love it. Understanding their roles, but most importantly, guys have accepted their roles, or you're not going to play. Fred had enough. Yeah. Period.
And we'll see. I think Bryce, with what he put together last year as not being the number 1 guy and what he is this year as a number 1 guy, there's going to be professional basketball teams out there, and I'm talking NBA, that are going to want to have that guy be a part of their roster, whether that's a guy that fluctuates between the G League and the NBA. You think he can develop him? Like, I think he's shown a lot this season. after being a pretty competent number 2 guy last year, this year he's the number 1 guy for Nebraska, and he's really settled into that role. I think someone out there is going to like what they see there. That's just a quick point to make about what we're seeing with Bryce Williams.
I want to give some shout outs. Guys have stumbled into the stream on our about Sunday on our Friday live with the Average Joe Sports Show. My dear Lord. Yeah, that was a bad take there. My fault. It is waste management open time. So
yeah, it's Friday. Yeah.
Kobe. Yep. Kobe is in. Kobe shout out. Steve is here. Good work. Tuck says, I'm here to be average. God
nice
love
job,
you, Tuck. Yep.
So far, so good, Tuck.
And Brian says, I accidentally stumbled in.
So did the 3 of us.
I know, right? I've been sitting here. Where are my friends?
Yeah.
And Kobe's doing it right. Look at that. He's got notifications for the Average Joe Sports Show. Turn them on.
That leads into your subscription. Real easy. It's free. Just subscribe to the Average Joe Sports Show on YouTube. Do it on Twitter as well, the AJ Sports Pod, Spotify, iTunes for the podcast. As we'll be shouting out, and we'll kind of lead up to, well, we won't go quite till 1 on Sunday, but we'll be in front of Nebraska, Ohio State, and then the Super Bowl, of course. But had to give some thoughts on Nebraska basketball, guys. Mike Ekeler, are you surprised? We were talking Sunday with what Rule had laid out, a non-recruiting role. And I thought, okay, you don't want a recruiter or somebody that's going to stay on campus. Well, you've got Coach Bush that was a popular name, and Mike Ekeler, a very popular name, but was doing great at Tennessee when you look at how well his special teams had performed. And remember talking to Eck right when he got the Tennessee job. That was 2021, and he was fired up. But he's somebody that we've all had a chance to bump into. Awesome dude, super infectious, energy-wise, has a standard for his special teams, and is one mother of a storyteller. That it's just going to be a good time. It's going to be a good time, and above all, you've got Butler coaching your defense. You've got Dana doing the offense, and now you've got a really proven special teams coordinator that can also coach some linebackers. Most of his linebackers, by the way, have gone on to time in the NFL historically, wherever he's been. So good to get Eckler back in town.
Yeah, you know what? I'm very curious to see what the salary is, because Mike's family, his parents still live in Butler County, and I think initially when this job was open, and by the way, Ed Foley has a new job. He's director of football relations. So he is staying on the staff. If you've seen him, he was front and center representing Nebraska football at DBK's welcome yesterday. I think there was some initial, I don't know, I want to come back to Nebraska. He's got a good life at Tennessee, and he's taken care of. The contract was coming up, so the timing was, if you were going to make a move, it was this time. And I think, we're happy there with the family. But I'm sure that Rule, who really has no connection to Eckler, he knows his name and knows the success that he's had, probably continued the conversation. And somebody said, this is a guy you can't let say no. And so pursued him. And, I think it's from top to bottom, it's a great addition because we know what he can do with special teams, but he can also recruit. I mean, we saw... Hell, he got a Will Compton tattoo, whether real or not, to get Will Compton to come here. So he's somebody that loves Nebraska, that understands Nebraska, and it also lets you understand that Matt Rule is taking special teams seriously. And you look at now, compared to where Nebraska was with their original staff to now what they will roll out for 2025, just look at the 3 coordinators. Nebraska's in a really good spot. So kudos to Rule for really leaning into the CEO role of hiring the right people to run offense, defense, and special teams. And I think it's a slam dunk with Mike Ekeler, and I hope he is one of the higher paid special teams coaches in the country. Wouldn't surprise me just to run special teams if he's paid over $600,000 a year.
Well, and it saves Nebraska's Red Bull budget. Because he's kind of like the Chuck Norris deal that, he doesn't drink Red Bull. Red Bull taps into Mike Ekeler. So
well, him and Dana though, Bill. I mean, him and Dana need their own not mini full size fridge.
So I mean, those guys are wired. So that's positive.
No, I think what Bill is saying here is you don't need Red Bull if you can just do a blood transfusion because Mike Ekeler's blood is Red Bull.
Yeah, the guy's just intense. The thing that strikes me about what Matt Rule has done, and just also I'm thinking the money. I would imagine Ed Foley, and congratulations on them to find a job for him that I think he's incredibly well suited for. So, but there's probably a savings there, I would think, and I've not seen anything restructured numbers for Satterfield going from OC down to a tight ends coach. I can't be making the same coin that he was. So there's money. Not that Nebraska doesn't have money, but I would think that would be diverted to enticing somebody to take the job. But the bigger picture on this is, and it always strikes me, and it has for decades, that why would anybody go to Nebraska? How can you win there? That this is too challenging. It's just not going to happen there. Well, then Tom Osborne wins 255 games, 3 national. You just can't get it done there. Nobody's going to want to go there. You can't recruit there. It's just so difficult. And Rule has come back, and there seems to be some pretty strong recruiting around the country to bring players in. But the coaches that are still attracted, looking at the Nebraska job and what it can do for them, either as a destination or as a place to go to enhance their careers. He's brought in some very good coaches this second time around. When he got the job, it was kind of putting something together with people that he knew. But to attract a Dana Holgorsen, and then to get a John Butler and is Addison Williams the DB and Dakel Shorts, you're talking about bringing coaches in. So it is still a great place to go if you want to be a college football coach. And you bring in a Simpson from Florida, who's convinced that he can bring Florida kids with him. Those naysayers that say you just can't get good people to go to Nebraska, players or coaches, this is just another indication. And for Mike Ekeler to leave a great place like Tennessee and what they got going on there, and maybe tugs at the heartstrings and you get a chance to go home and your parents are there, your roots are there, you can never deny that. But still, to leave what he had and all those other coaches to believe in what's going on here, I just is another slap in the face to those who have always been critical that you just can't win at Nebraska. You can't entice good people, and that's not the case right now with what Matt Rule has done. I'm impressed that to have Mike Ekeler be, I don't want to say cherry on top. I hate that, but to be really the final piece to the puzzle, coaching wise, and Rocco Spindler to come from Notre Dame to Nebraska. Once again, Nebraska's winning another offseason national title.
Pretty good. Rocco loading the U-Haul, trucking from South Bend to Lincoln, which is really cool. There's a lot of excitement for his ability at guard or center. So I gotta go here because I've talked about it a little bit, and all three of you have had unique buddies growing up or even in college. And I'm going to the exotic pet guy, and because that's also Mike Ekeler. So Rule had a lizard or a gecko or a gecko or whatever the hell they're called named LT. Okay. My buddy Chad had a chinchilla in high school named Cheech. We'll let you do the math on that. But Eckler's piranha he got when he was in high school that moved with him to Manhattan, Kansas, when he was face painting and doing special teams for Bill Snyder. He named his piranha Carl Lipbalm Spackler. That was the government name because he loved Caddyshack so much. Some roomie apparently tried to take Carl, the piranha, out of the aquarium. The piranha ate the netting, choked to death. Well, Eckler then had Carl the piranha stuffed and mounted above his locker. He would go Joe Boo and kneel before it, before every football game. And apparently there was a ransom out for Carl at some point, Eckler's senior year, where he did not get Carl back until the Hawaii Bowl before K-State went out there in '94. So that's the history of exotic pet. Mike Ekeler. It goes beyond the fake tattoo of Will Compton. It goes beyond the winning a bet, running on the interstate with the state patrol pulling up saying, dude, you can't run on the interstate. And I had to share the exotic pet. I've had a turtle, and I have three dogs that hate me. Anybody have a buddy that had that snake, tarantula, poisonous cobra? Anybody here have a exotic pet or a buddy that had one? Mikey Moore doesn't count, Doleman.
No, I was just thinking of Mike Murray. I don't know if anybody remembers the
Chicago
5'9" Chicago
guard.
nose guard.
Yeah,
back in Nebraska, 5'2" days. His dad was a Chicago cop, and I think Mike went back to Chicago to be a cop, if I'm not mistaken. But his big thing was he had pet snakes, and not just gardener snakes out of the backyard. I mean, it was he had some serious snakes that he was proud of. I'm sure there's been a few other Huskers in their time, but I just remember Mike because he was about 5'9" and 235, and I think they probably listed him at 5'11" and 265, and that wasn't the case. But he was tough as hell, and his big thing was snake collecting. Probably the first time Mike Murray's been talked about in Nebraska football parlance since 1988. But people like me remember him.
I know.
Elijah, anybody at Southeast or in your college era?
No, I do know. How do I put this? You guys remember Husker basketball player Cam Mack? He to put on his Snapchat story that he would let the women should come meet his pet snake.
Jesus.
Save that for after dark.
I do apologize. That's just the only thing that came to mind. I remember seeing that and being like, who in their right mind would put that out there for all of their friends to see? But he was a different character.
One of my favorite Cam Mack stories is he got kicked off the Nebraska basketball team. This is right before the COVID shutdown. And him and there was another guy that got kicked off the team. They were both in the front row at the Little Baby concert at PBA right before COVID hit. Yeah, that's my good Cam Mack story.
Were you at the Little Baby concert?
No, but a buddy of mine works security at PBA. And he was like, well, I guess Cam Mack's not playing tonight. And I'm like, nope, he gone.
How about them Bears?
Yeah. But that's good to know, Elijah. I'm glad you were clicking on Cam Mack's story.
Kobe was at the Little Baby concert.
Yeah. Thank you, Kobe. Guys, as we wind down, let's talk Daddy Busboom Kelly and her reception, her emotion. We spent a lot of time talking volleyball here the last, what has it been, 2 weeks, and really awesome for her to get the reception. We'll touch on some baseball as well, but DBK is ready to continue the excellence of Nebraska volleyball, and there were so many there to support and see.
I think it's huge that there's a female in a prominent role, and it's somebody who played here, is from here, and I think will elevate the Nebraska brand, which is already the top brand. Her engagement, her personality as people are getting to know her is going to be next level. And so her engagement with fans and her coaching chops are really going to be the next step in what John Cook has left. And it would not surprise me. I mean, we went from Pettit handing it to John. They won a national title. There's a really good team there. And John is handing it to DBK. I wouldn't be surprised if they win a national title. I'm amazed at how all of this came together so seamlessly. And I think it really indicates how good the people involved are, from Troy Dannon to John Cook to Danny Busboom Kelly, that they were prepared for this moment. They're at a different level than all of us, and it has gone off without a hitch. And there's a ton of excitement. And the fact that no players have transferred, and they've all been, the communication has been open, I think is a testament to the culture of Nebraska volleyball. And I think that's why DBK will slide right in and we'll just keep this train moving. I said it last week. It's a slam dunk hire. It was always going to be her. And I think this week has just reiterated that Nebraska volleyball is in really, really good hands. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen, because I thought it was great yesterday. Her engagement, you could tell that this means something to her, and she understands the task. And I think when you inherit a beast like that, that's part of the job, is you have to understand what you're getting into, and she fully does. And that's why I don't think they'll miss a beat.
Louisville knew the day was coming, because the contract long ago had been structured that if Nebraska called, she could go and there would be no questions asked, and that was going to be that. I still maintain, I think, look, this is just my opinion. I think John Cook probably wanted to do this last year and knew that, I think we talked about it Sunday too, and knew that Louisville's hosting. She's going to have a great team. I'll hold off for a year, see if she can win it for all that she's built there. But then the time's going to be, and I'm sure when she picked up the phone and called her athletic director and said, we need to talk, he knew exactly what the conversation was going to be about. So Louisville's been prepared for this, and it just follows a script that she had such a great team with Anna DeBeer. They had been hosting. It didn't end the way they wanted, but the time was right. John Cook at 68 years of age. I think too, those players at Nebraska, nobody's transferring. Everybody's hold true to their commitment. I think for them, it's not just helping her, but it's also honoring him. I think this is their way of saying, we respect you so much that we are going to honor your decision by stepping down and giving the job to her. We're going to honor you by winning for her. I think there's that mentality, and you're right. It's a great team that's coming back. I think what going forward for Nebraska volleyball and Troy Dannon, they're talking about increasing the capacity at Devaney to 10,000. And now people keep saying they got to go play at PBA. I don't think you need to. You want to maintain that intimacy, but what they have to do, and God bless the fans who were there when they were setting up folding chairs back in the late 1980s, and they're still fans to this day. And there are some. The original match club that the late John Kripe and his family put together. God bless those people. But if they're going to redesign the Devaney Center, they have got to do so in a way like they've done with PBA and the students. The students have to own the floor at volleyball matches. Mm-hmm. And they have to thank those people who have been longtime fans, make it accommodating to them so that they are still close to the action, but the floor needs to belong to the future. It has to have some semblance of an atmosphere. And yes, they fill the seats and it's packed, but oftentimes it's a little too cordial. And Nebraska needs to have that raucous Coliseum kind of crowd when you could feel the building breathe and shake. And right now it's comfortable. And students want. John Cook begged for it. Right now, you've got about 50 to 100. There should be 1,500 on the floor at whatever they're going to do. So that's what I want to see for her and the program moving forward. That's the next step, is to make this more of a college community and not a country club.
Yeah, by far the hardest ticket to get as a student at UNL for me was Husker Volleyball. By far, wasn't even close. Husker Volleyball, like, the season tickets for the students were sold out immediately. You had to be doing ticket transfers if you wanted to get in. Super hard to get into. You get into basketball and football, no problem at all. Somebody out there would give you a ticket for free. Volleyball, it's another story.
And going to be a busy spring, Sharpie, Doleman, and Elijah at Old Haymarket Park with Husker Baseball. A lot of preseason love. And, of course, Husker Softball already off and rolling with Jordy. 2-run shot yesterday, a 7-1 win over number 6 Rocky Top. I mean, it's kind of the SEC invitational when it comes to the Women's College World Series the last few years. I don't know, man. Nebraska could have something special. I got to go back to the Peaches James era with the last time Nebraska made a roadie down there. Some of us were on hand for it. It was cool.
You're welcome.
Yeah, no, I know both of you guys hooked me up with that. It was like, dude, you're going down to Oklahoma City. Don't get in trouble.
Hey, think about, and I think, I mean, from Bowling Stadium to Haymarket Park, it's going to be a really good spring. Think about where Nebraska is in terms of star power and young star power. They got Dylan Raiola, who is making the high school basketball tour with Emmett Johnson.
That's super cool. I want to get into that in a second, but continue.
You have Britt Prince, a freshman.
Yeah.
You have Jordy Bahl, who is one of the top, most recognizable players in that sport. And then you have Harper Murray. So, and three of those sports I just mentioned are female sports, but Nebraska is in an era where they actually have star power. Like you're going to the Devaney Center, Memorial Stadium, or Bolin Stadium to see a specific player. And I will tell you, I've watched Jordy's career from when she was here in Omaha with Papillion La Vista. She is worth it, man. In the circle, at the plate, which she's going to hit more at Nebraska, was part of her deal when she left Oklahoma. She hits a home run last night.
Yeah,
I think Rhonda's getting towards the end, and I think she'll be here through the entire time of Jordy Bahl, and then Rhonda will retire as an incredible 30-plus year career. But they got something special. They realize that Jordy Bahl doesn't come around very often, and she left the state originally to go to OU. Don't blame her. I would go to OU as well. But now that she's back, the championship aspirations for softball are real because of her and what they've added around her. It's pretty amazing.
I mean, look, are we prepared to call her Shohei Ball? Jordy Otani, what she's doing both pitching and hitting. That might be disrespectful to Jordy Bahl, honestly. I mean, she's at the top of her sport. Like, what we're looking at is a player that could be winning, like, make it to a College World Series MVP type honors, what she can do both in the circle and at the plate. Enjoy it while it lasts, because we were robbed of it last season a little bit.
And it sucked the life out of that season.
It did. But you look at the transfer class they brought in this year, people are excited to play at Nebraska with Jordy Bahl. I mean, in my opinion, right now, best player in the country, and she's playing for Nebraska.
You nailed it with the best player part, but you keep winning, you keep this hype building. I mean, you could have Jenny Finch type recognition, right? With, all right, here's Jordy Bahl, here's what she's doing in the circle and at the plate, and you could have that type of buzz, is what I'm getting at. Yep. For Nebraska, if they can, finish it off and get down to Oklahoma City. I know we're way ahead of ourselves as the season just got underway.
I don't want to let Britt Prince get lost in this either.
No, she's
Gary
phenomenal.
Mentioned her. I called it a year ago that Bergen Riley's going to be the best setter Nebraska volleyball's ever had. I think Britt Prince might be, by the time she's done playing here, the best player Nebraska basketball has ever had on the women's side. She's awesome. She's a player. Yeah. So you can't get lost in that. She's just at the beginning of her star power. Jordy Bahl's star is already in the constellation, and what a great comeback to hit home run after the season you had. And not only do we steal your special teams coordinator, now we're jacking you around in the season opener. So, but I love watching Britt Prince play and all those younger players that Nebraska has.
And speaking of, I said I wanted to get back into this. So Schmidt, if you wanted, is there more you have to say about baseball or softball? Because I want to talk about Dylan.
I think the Dylan World Tour needs to be talked about.
It does. I mean, for as much as all of us like high school basketball within this state, we really appreciate it. Man, how cool is it to see a Husker football player just going around hanging out with the student section, soaking it all in with Emmett Johnson? That's something special. I don't know why that seems so different to me, but it is different. Maybe it's just because of the notoriety of Dylan Raiola, but so interesting to see a guy going out there, and he could be living the college life. He could be hanging out at frat parties at this time of year, but he's not. He's going out and he's watching high school basketball all across the state. I think it's super cool.
He was at the HAC championship game. He wanted to come check out Houston last Saturday. So there was a buzz. There was standing room only for that championship game between North Star and Northeast. It was awesome. Last second win, and it was Houston that dished the game winner to his teammate in response to a game tying 3. So he was at Southwest the other night, and
he was at Westside Miller North last night.
Was he? Okay. That's when you need to hit as well.
Well,
right?
So he has become friends with a junior at Westside.
Okay.
So they are Dylan Raiola camp is letting schools know that he might be coming just because of the amount of people.
The buzz, right?
Yeah. But I do think it's cool. I mean, it's somebody who has lived in the spotlight their entire life because of their dad, and everybody knows who they are since you were in 8th grade. And we don't see that very often in the fishbowl of being the quarterback at Nebraska, because sometimes you like to have some privacy because everybody knows who you are. And he's fine with it. He's out there. He's out amongst people his age, which is, it's you got to do the work first before you can go out and, get the accolades. Mm-hmm. But I like the fact that he's not shying away from being the quarterback at Nebraska. And I think if you go back to last Saturday, Rule made some comments about his quarterback, about leadership, getting the work done, those kind of things. Imagine if you can be really, really good on the field and still have that presence in the community. Mm-hmm. I mean, we're talking about a whole different world that we haven't really seen in the social media age from a quarterback at Nebraska.
Mm-hmm. No, fair point. Absolutely. And Rule was good about saying, hey, you go do your thing, fine. Put the work in you are, and make sure everybody's there with you, not part of your wide receiver room. And that is happening. Guys, it was fun. We might do this again for a live afternoon Average Joe sports show. That is Bill Doleman, Gary Sharp, Elijah Herbel, Chris Schmidt. We'll be back at you Sunday morning, getting you ready for Nebraska, Ohio State. And, of course, the Super Bowl, where Gary Sharp will have his predictions. We'll get the Sharp lock of the week, end with some prop bets. Is that good?
And we'll also get a report. I'm going to be at the Lincoln Stars versus Omaha Lancers game tonight. Standing room only, I'll be there, so I'll provide a report. I'm sure everyone will be super enthused to hear about how many beers I consumed.
Elijah saw 7 goals, and he had to focus on 1.
Hey, that was where I got my start doing hockey. Was first 10 years of Lincoln Stars. Nothing like a packed ice box, and also when you're beating down the Omaha Lancers.
Yeah. So
gloves will be off on that one. Everyone have a good weekend. We'll talk to you Sunday at 10:30 with the Average Joe Sports Show.